This first example is identical to our original example. We're simply printing this string out to the browser. Now, most of the time you can identify a string by the quotes. You see that there's some quotes at the beginning and some quotes at the end. Now, strings are very important because most of the time what you output to the browser ends up in a string before you actually print it to the browser. And so understanding how they work exactly is pretty important. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other examples. I'm going to go ahead and comment out this example and uncomment this one. Now this one spans 2 lines. So what we're demonstrating here is that you can have a string that spans more than 1 line, and that actually shows up when it's printed to the browser. So go ahead and save this file and jump back to the browser and refresh. And now it doesn't look like there's a new line, but if we look at the source code for this, I just pressed Ctrl U in Firefox in order to view it. You see that our text spans multiple lines. I'm going to jump back to my editor. Let's go ahead and recomment out these 2 lines. And I'm just pressing Ctrl Z in order to undo what we had just done, which was removing the comments. And now let's remove the comments from our third example, this line here. There's a few special characters that we can use in strings in order to represent white space. One is a Newline character, which is a backslash and an N. So if we save this file and we jump back to the browser and refresh, and then look at the source code again, you'll see that we have our new line here, just like we did in our previous example. I'm going to jump back to the editor. Now in these first 3 examples, we use double quotes, but we can also use single quotes. So let's go ahead and recomment out this third example. I'm just going to press Ctrl Z, and then I'm going to uncomment out this 4th example. Now notice that we're using single quotes here, which work for strings, but when we use special characters like new lines, they won't appear as new lines. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file and jump back to the browser and refresh. You see that we now have this /n instead of the new line. Now whether you use single quotes or double quotes around your strings is totally up to you, but there are a couple of differences between the two, and this is one that's important to note. I'm going to jump back to the editor. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 5th example. I'm going to recomment out the 4th example and then uncomment the 5th one. Since we're talking about quotes, one thing that's really helpful to know is that you can use quotes within quotes as long as they are of a different type. So in this case, we have double quotes around single quotes. We could also reverse this and have single quotes around double quotes. If we save this and look at the browser, you'll see that we have our quotes displayed here. I'm going to jump back to the examples, and I'm going to recomment out this 5th example and uncomment out the 6th. So sometimes when you're working with quotes, you'll have double quotes around a string, but you'll need to use double quotes within it. You can do this, but you need to do something called escaping the character, and that's with this backslash here. So you see we have double quotes around this string, but within this string we have double quotes around world. Now normally this would break the code, but since we're using these slashes in order to escape the quotes, then they'll pass through just fine. So go ahead and save this example and jump back to the browser and refresh, and you'll see now we have double quotes around the word world. Let's jump back to the editor and recomment out the 6th example and uncomment the 7th and save it. Now this last example is really important, and you'll see this a lot. We can take 2 strings and we can put them together as one string by using something called concatenation. In PHP, we concatenate 2 strings by using a period. So in this case, what we're doing is gluing together hello again, comma, and then world. So if we save this and jump back to the browser and refresh, you'll see our original string here. You'll see concatenation a lot in the examples to follow. So if you don't quite get it, go ahead and jump back to this code and play with it a bit. Try to concatenate more than 2 strings. So take 5 different strings and concatenate them all together and see if you can print them to the browser. A lot of times in PHP, you're going to have dynamic strings. That is, strings that react to some kind of difference in the environment. So for example, when you log into a website and it says hello and then your name, that's one example of some dynamic text. In order to use dynamic text, you'll need to understand what variables are. So that's what we're going to do next.